Section 2 of the Love Letters of Dorothy Osborne. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Landy. The Love Letters of Dorothy Osborne. Letter 6, March the 5th, 1653. Sir, I know not how to oblige so civil a person as you are, more than by giving you the occasion of serving a fair lady. In sober earnest, I know you will not think it a trouble to let your boy deliver these books and this enclosed letter where it is directed from my lady, whom I would, the fainest in the world, have you acquainted with, that you might judge whether I had not reason to say somebody was to blame. But had you reason to be displeased that I said a change in you would be much more pardonable than in him? Certainly you had not. I spake it very innocently, and out of a great sense how much she deserves more than anybody else. I shall take heed though hereafter what I write, since you are so good at raising doubts to persecute yourself withal, and shall condemn my own easy faith no more. For me 'tis a better natured and a less fault to believe too much than to distrust where there is no cause. If you were not so apt to quarrel, I would tell you that I am glad to hear your journey goes forwarder, but you would presently imagine that 'tis because I would be glad if you were gone. Need I say that 'tis because I prefer your interest much before my own, because I would not have you lose so good a diversion and so pleasing an entertainment, as in all likelihood this voyage will be to you, and because the sooner you go, the sooner I may hope for your return. If it be necessary, I will confess all this, and something more, which is, that notwithstanding all my gallantry and resolution, 'tis much for my credit that my courage is put to no greater a trial than parting with you at this distance. But you are not going yet neither, and therefore we'll leave the discourse on it till then, if you please, for I find no great entertainment in it. And let me ask you whether it be possible that Mr. Gray makes love, they say he does, to my Lady Jane Seymour? If it were expected that one should give a reason for their passions, what could he say for himself? He would not offer, sure, to make us believe my Lady Jane a lovelier person than my Lady Anne Percy. I did not think I should have lived to have seen his frozen heart melted. 'Tis the greatest conquest she will ever make. May it be happy to her. But in my opinion he has not a good-natured look. The younger brother was a servant a great while to my fair neighbour, but could not be received, and in earnest I could not blame her. I was his confidant, and heard him make his addresses, not that I brag of the favour he did me, for anybody might have been so that had been as often there, and he was less scrupulous in that point than one would have been that had had less reason. But in my life I never heard a man say more, nor less to the purpose, and if his brother have not a better gift in courtship, he'll owe my lady's favour to his fortune rather than to his address. My Lady Anne Wentworth, I hear, is marrying, but I cannot learn to whom, nor is it easy to guess who is worthy of her. In my judgment she is without dispute the finest lady I know, one always excepted. Not that she is at all handsome, but infinitely virtuous and discreet, of a sober and very different humour from most of the young people of these times, but has as much wit and is as good company as anybody that ever I saw. What would you give that I had but the wit to know when to make an end of my letters? Never anybody was persecuted with such long epistles, but you will pardon my unwillingness to leave you, and notwithstanding all your little doubts, believe that I am very much your faithful friend and humble servant, Dorothy Osborne. Letter 7. Sir, I am so great a lover of my bed myself, that I can easily apprehend the trouble of rising at 4 o'clock these cold mornings. In earnest, I'm troubled that you should be put to it, and have chid the carrier for coming out so soon. He swears to me he never comes out of town before 11 o'clock, and that my Lady Painter's footman, as he calls him, brings her letters 2 hours sooner than he needs to do. I told him he was gone one day before the letter came. He vows he was not, and that your old friend Collins never brought letters of my Lady Painter's in his life. And, to speak truth, Collins did not bring me that letter. I had it from this Harold 2 hours before Collins came. Yet it is possible all that he says may not be so, for I have known better men than he lie. Therefore, if Collins be more for your ease or conveniency, make use of him hereafter. I know not whether my letter were kind or not, but I'll swear yours was not, and I am sure mine was meant to be so. It is not kind in you to desire an increase of my friendship. That is to doubt it is not as great already as it can be, than which you cannot do me a greater injury. 'Tis my misfortune indeed that it lies not in my power to give you better testimony on it than words, otherwise I should soon convince you that 'tis the best quality I have, and that where I own a friendship, I mean so perfect a one as time can neither lessen nor increase. If I said nothing of my coming to town, 'twas because I had nothing to say that I thought you would like to hear. For I do not know that ever I desired anything earnestly in my life but 'twas denied me, and I am many times afraid to wish a thing, merely lest my fortune should take that occasion to use me ill. She cannot see, and therefore I may venture to write that I intend to be in London, if it be possible, on Friday or Saturday come se'nnight. Be sure you do not read it aloud, lest she hear it, and prevent me, or drive you away before I come. It is so like my luck, too, that you should be going, I know not whither again; but trust me, I have looked for it ever since I heard you were come home. You will laugh, sure, when I tell you that hearing that my Lord Lisle was to go ambassador into Sweden, I remembered your father's acquaintance in that family with an apprehension that he might be in the humour of sending you with him. But for God's sake, whither is it that you go? I would not willingly be at such a loss again as I was after your Yorkshire journey. If it prove as long a one, I shall not forget you, but in earnest I shall be so possessed with a strong splenetic fancy that I shall never see you more in this world, as all the waters in England will not cure. Well, this is a sad story. We'll have no more on it. I humbly thank you for your offer of your head, but if you were an emperor, I should not be so bold with you as to claim your promise. You might find 20 better employments for it. Only, with your gracious leave, I think I should be a little exalted with remembering that you had been once my friend. 'Twould more endanger growing proud than being Sir Justinian's mistress, and yet he thought me pretty well inclined to it then. Lord, what would I give that I had a Latin letter of his for you, that he writ to a great friend at Oxford, where he gives him a long and learned character of me. 'Twould serve you to laugh at this 7 years. If I remember what was told me on it, the worst of my faults was a height (he would not call it pride) that was, as he had heard, the humour of my family. And the best of my commendations was, that I was capable of being company and conversation for him. But you do not tell me yet how you found him out. If I had gone about to conceal him, I had been sweetly served. I shall take heed of you hereafter, because there is no very great likelihood of your being an emperor, or that if you were, I should have your head. I have sent into Italy for seals. 'Tis to be hoped by that time mine come over, they may be of fashion again, for 'tis in humour that your old acquaintance Mr. Smith and his lady have brought up. They say she wears 20 strung upon a ribbon, like the nuts boys play withal, and I do not hear of anything else. Mr. Howard presented his mistress but a dozen such seals as are not to be valued as times now go. But apropos of Monsieur Smith, what a scape he has made of my Lady Barbary, and who would e'er have dreamt that he should have had my Lady Sunderland, though he be a very fine gentleman, and does more than deserve her. I think I shall never forgive her one thing she said of him, which was that she married him out of pity. It was the pitifullest saying that ever I heard, and made him so contemptible that I should not have married him for that reason. This is a strange letter, sure. I have not time to read it over, but I have said anything that came into my head to put you out of your dumps. For God's sake, be in better humour, and assure yourself I am as much as you can wish, your faithful friend and servant, Dorothy Osborne. Letter 8. Sir, you have made me so rich as I am able to help my neighbours. There is a little head cut in an onyx that I take to be a very good one, and the dolphin is, as you say, the better for being cut less. The oddness of the figures makes the beauty of these things. If you saw one that my brother sent my Lady Diana last week, you would believe it were meant to fright people withal. 'Twas brought out of the Indies, and cut there for an idol's head. They took the devil himself for their pattern that did it, for in my life I never saw so ugly a thing, and yet she is as fond on it as if it were as lovely as she herself is. Her eyes have not the flames they have had, nor is she like, I am afraid, to recover them here. But were they irrecoverably lost, the beauty of her mind were enough to make her outshine everybody else, and she would still be courted by all that knew how to value her, like La Belle Avoirgle that was Philip II of France his mistress. I am wholly ignorant of the story you mention, and am confident you are not well informed, for 'tis impossible that she should ever have done anything that were so unhandsome. If I knew who the person were that is concerned in it, she allows me so much freedom with her that I could easily put her upon the discourse, and I do not think she would use much of a disguise in it towards me. I should have guessed at Algernon Sidney, but that I cannot see in him that likelihood of a fortune which you seem to imply by saying 'tis not present. But if you should mean by that 'tis possible his wit and good parts may raise him to one, you must pardon if I am not of your opinion, for I do not think these times are for anybody to expect preferment in that deserves it, and in the best was ever too uncertain for a wise body to trust to. But I am altogether of your mind, that my Lady Sunderland is not to be followed in her marrying fashion, and that Mr. Smith never appeared less her servant than in desiring it. To speak truth, it was convenient for neither of them, and in meaner people had been plain undoing one another, which I cannot understand to be kindness of either side. She has lost by it much of the repute she had gained by keeping herself a widow. It was then believed that wit and discretion were to be reconciled in her person that have so seldom been persuaded to meet in anybody else. But we are all mortal. I did not mean that Howard. 'Twas Arundel Howard, and the seals were some remainders that showed his father's love to antiquities, and therefore cost him dear enough, if that would make them good. I am sorry I cannot follow your counsel in keeping fair with fortune. I am not apt to suspect without just cause, but in earnest, if I once find anybody faulty towards me, they lose me for ever. I have forsworn being twice deceived by the same person. For God's sake, do not say she has the spleen. I shall hate it worse than ever I did; nor that it is a disease of the wits. I shall think you abuse me, for then I am sure it would not be mine. But were it certain that they went together always, I dare swear there is nobody so proud of their wit as to keep it upon such terms. But I would be glad, after they had enjoyed it a while, to let them both go as they came. I know nothing yet that is likely to alter my resolution of being in town on Saturday next; but I am uncertain where I shall be, and therefore it will be best that I send you word when I am there. I should be glad to see you sooner, but that I do not know myself what company I may have with me. I meant this letter longer when I begun it, but an extreme cold that I have taken lies so in my head, and makes it ache so violently, that I hardly see what I do. I'll e'en to bed as soon as I have told you that I am very much your faithful friend and servant, Dorothy Osborne. Letter 9. Sir, I was so kind as to write to you by the coachman, and let me tell you I think 'twas the greatest testimony of my friendship that I could give you, for, trust me, I was so tired with my journey, so dowed with my cold, and so out of humour with our parting, that I should have done it with great unwillingness to anybody else. I lay abed all next day to recover myself, and rise the Thursday to receive your letter with the more ceremony. I found no fault with the ill writing; 'twas but too easy to read, methought, for I am sure I had done much sooner than I could have wished. But in earnest I was heartily troubled to find you in so much disorder. I would not have you so kind to me as to be cruel to yourself, in whom I am more concerned. No, for God's sake, let us not make afflictions of such things as these. I am afraid we shall meet with too many real ones. I am glad your journey holds, because I think 'twill be a good diversion for you this summer. But I admire your father's patience, that lets you rest with so much indifference, when there is such a fortune offered. I'll swear I have great scruples of conscience myself on the point, and am much afraid I am not your friend if I am any part of the occasion that hinders you from accepting it. Yet I am sure my intentions towards you are very innocent and good, for you are one of those whose interest I shall ever prefer much above my own, and you are not to thank me for it, since, to speak truth, I secure my own by it; for I defy my ill fortune to make me miserable, unless she does it in the persons of my friends. I wonder how your father came to know I was in town, unless my old friend, your cousin Hammond, should tell him. Pray, for my sake, be a very obedient son. All your faults will be laid to my charge else, and alas, I have too many of my own. You say nothing how your sister does, which makes me hope there is no more of danger in her sickness. Pray, when it may be no trouble to her, tell her how much I am her servant, and have a care of yourself this cold weather. I have read your Rhine Marguerite, and will return it to you when you please. If you will have my opinion of her, I think she had a good deal of wit, and a great deal of patience for a woman of so high a spirit. She speaks with too much indifference of her husband's several amours, and commends Bussy as if she were a little concerned in him. I think her a better sister than a wife, and believe she might have made a better wife to a better husband. But the story of Mademoiselle de Tournon is so sad, that when I read it I was able to go no further, and was fain to take up something else to divert myself withal. Have you read Cléopâtre? I have 6 tomes on it here, that I can lend you if you have not. There are some stories in it you will like, I believe. But what an ass I am, to think you can be idle enough at London to read romance! No, I'll keep them till you come hither. Here they may be welcome to you, for want of better company. Yet, that you may not imagine we are quite out of the world here, and so be frightened from coming, I can assure you we are seldom without news, such as it is, and at this present we do abound with stories of my Lady Sunderland and Mr. Smith, with what reverence he approaches her, and how like a gracious princess she receives him, that they say 'tis worth one's going 20 miles to see it. All our ladies are mightily pleased with the example, but I do not find that the men intend to follow it, and I'll undertake Sir Solomon Justinian wishes her in the Indias, for fear she should pervert his new wife. Your fellow servant kisses your hands, and says, if you mean to make love to her old woman, this is the best time you can take, for she is dying. This cold weather kills her, I think. It has undone me, I am sure, in killing an old knight that I have been waiting for this 7 year, and now he dies, and will leave me nothing, I believe, but leaves a rich widow for somebody. I think you had best come a wooing to her. I have a good interest in her, and it shall be all employed in your service, if you think it fit to make any addresses there. But to be sober now again, for God's sake send me word how your journey goes forward, when you think you shall begin it, and how long it may last, when I may expect your coming this way, and of all things remember to provide a safe address for your letters when you are abroad. This is a strange confused one, I believe, for I have been called away 20 times since I sat down to write it, to my father, who is not well, but you will pardon it, we are past ceremony, and excuse me if I say no more now, but that I am toujours l'aimeuse mère, that is, ever your affectionate friend and servant, Dorothy Osborne. Letter 10. Sir, your last letter came like a pardon to one upon the block. I had given over the hopes on it, having received my letters by the other carrier, who was always wont to be last. The loss put me hugely out of order, and you would have both pitied and laughed at me if you could have seen how woodenly I entertained the widow, who came hither the day before, and surprised me very much. Not being able to say anything, I got her to cards, and there, with a great deal of patience, lost my money to her, or rather I gave it as my ransom. In the midst of our play, in comes my blessed boy with your letter, and in earnest I was not able to disguise the joy it gave me, though one was by that is not much your friend, and took notice of a blush that for my life I could not keep back. I put up the letter in my pocket, and made what haste I could to lose the money I had left, that I might take occasion to go fetch some more. But I did not make such haste back again, I can assure you. I took time enough to have coined myself some money, if I had had the art on it, and left my brother enough to make all his addresses to her, if he were so disposed. I know not whether he was pleased or not, but I am sure I was. You make so reasonable demands that 'tis not fit you should be denied. You ask my thoughts but at 1 hour. You will think me bountiful, I hope, when I shall tell you that I know no hour when you have them not. No, in earnest, my very dreams are yours, and I have got such a habit of thinking of you, that any other thought intrudes, and proves uneasy to me. I drink your health every morning in a drench that would poison a horse, I believe, and 'tis the only way I have to persuade myself to take it. 'Tis the infusion of steel, and makes me so horridly sick, that every day at 10 o'clock I am making my will, and taking leave of all my friends. You will believe you are not forgot then. They tell me I must take this ugly drink a fortnight, and then begin another as bad, but unless you say so too, I do not think I shall. 'Tis worse than dying by the half. I am glad your father is so kind to you. I shall not dispute it with him, because it is much more in his power than in mine, but I shall never yield that 'tis more in his desire, since he was much pleased with that which was a truth when you told it him, but would have been none if he had asked the question sooner. He thought there was no danger of you, since you were more ignorant and less concerned in my being in town than he. If I were Mrs. Chambers, he would be more my friend, but however, I am much his servant as he is your father. I have sent you your book, and since you are at leisure to consider the moon, you may be enough to read Cleopatra. Therefore I have sent you 3 tomes. When you have done with these you shall have the rest, and I believe they will please. There is a story of Artemise that I will recommend to you. Her disposition I like extremely, it has a great deal of practical wit. And if you meet with one Britomart, pray send me word how you like him. I am not displeased that my Lord Lisle makes no more haste, for though I am very willing that you should go the journey for many reasons, yet 2 or 3 months hence, sure, will be soon enough to visit so cold a country, and I would not have you endure 2 winters in 1 year. Besides, I look for my eldest brother and cousin Mole here shortly, and I should be glad to have nobody to entertain but you, whilst you are here. Lord, that you had the invisible ring, or Fortunatus his wishing hat! Now at this instant you should be here. My brother has gone to wait upon the widow homewards, she that was born to persecute you and I think. She has so tired me, with being here but 2 days, that I do not think I shall accept of the offer she made of me living with her, in case my father dies before I have disposed of myself. Yet we are very great friends, and for my comfort she says she will come again about the latter end of June, and stay longer with me. My aunt is still in town, kept by her business, which I am afraid will not go well, they do so delay it; and my precious uncle does so visit her, and is so kind, that without doubt some mischief will follow. Do you know his son, my cousin Harry? 'Tis a handsome youth, and well natured, but such a goose; and she has bred him so strangely that he needs all his 10,000 a year. I would fain have him marry my Lady Diana; she was his mistress when he was a boy. He had more wit then than he has now, I think; and I have less wit than he, sure, for spending my paper upon him when I have so little. Here is hardly room for Your affectionate friend and servant, Dorothy Osborne. End of Section 2